Welcome everyone to week 2 from the Cross-Cultural DataVis project. I'm going to share the screen. James and I made a new slide deck for you, and we're going to go on with the assignment. I'm going to explain it to you. Here we go. Week 2. We're on to spatial graphics. This week you will use the data that you collected to start creating a data-rich spatial graphic of your commuting route or some other route that you do often. Well, the following slides are about the process and how we will work on this. Here underneath you see the themes that we were gathering data. So it was the social theme, a physical theme, personality and style, and thoughts and feelings. So this week we're going to get visual. Well, you can approach it in many ways. You can do an abstract way. You can do more photographical way or illustrative. It's up to you. But the thing is that, well, it should be on a map. So for about the process, it's a bit of the same that we used. It's the Stephanie Posavec and Georgia Lupi method of making data visualizations. You have to spend time with your data and look at the lowest values, highest values, and what is the most interesting of your data. So you organize and categorize, and also in this way, if it's on the map, you have to think of its location, because we start to find a main story, and we focus this time on the spatial graphics. So you measured spatial positions where things happen. So relations or events in space. You will get visually inspired, and it depends, of course, on the theme that you've chosen, what icons or symbols can help you to make an abstract representation of the data. Well, of course, you should sketch and make some variations and try things out. Mainly the first idea is not the best idea, so keep trying things out, and eventually you will draw the final picture. So another examples again from last week, but think about it. In many different approaches are possible. You can use typography, photography, collage techniques, or whatever you like. Think about the encoding and decode because we're making encoding so people can read in a decoding way your visualization. So it's abstract representation of things you have measured. So that can be in color, it can be in icons, it can be in dots, lines, graphs, many ways to visualize your data. I have some nice example. It's not a data visualization, but you can imagine that every pattern can have some data in itself. So I really like to look at images and think, oh, what if this is a data visualization? So try to find some inspiration maybe on Pinterest or around you that inspires you to make a visualization which connects to your subject. We have a nice example from the information capital of two guys who made many data visualizations on maps about London. And this is an example of seeking shade. What they did is they mapped all the trees in the city and where you can find the best shade. And what is interesting is that the map appears according to the places of the trees where they are situated without drawing an actual map, because there is no road drawn here, but it appears of the location of where are the trees. So that's another approach of visualizing. What you see here is all the icons of the leaves that are representing a tree kind, a kind of tree, and they use the data in, because it's so many, just in a small block. So you can see you can have many levels of visual ways of visualizing your map, like abstract and a bit more realistic. Another way of this book, which is also interesting and also culturally interesting, we found this great map of all the languages, of how people say hello in London. And there you can see they have lots of different areas where are people living together from the same country. So they say different, in a different way, hello to each other. And here you see that the color also helps to clutter down the area, so you feel that there are small dots or groups appearing because of the use of color. I will go a bit closer so you can look with me. So you see that there are uh, many cultures living together. This is a map of America, and I want to give the word to James now, because I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't see the difference, but maybe you can explain why this is a cultural interesting piece.
Yeah, the map really depends for decoding on somebody's familiarity with the United States in general and with the size of the individual states. What it is representing is quantities of population, number of people in some group or other. And it's distorting the map itself, distorting the shape of the states to convey that quantitative difference. So, for example, when I look at it, this is a really good example for cross-cultural visualization. When I look at it, I immediately notice that my state, squeezed into almost nowhere down at the bottom, Louisiana, is really much smaller than it would appear on a map.
Is
And
it this one?
Florida, it's you're almost right. The one that looks a little bit like a shoe to the left. That
This
not
one.
that one. Yeah, that one. I
This is
mean,
Louisiana.
yeah, that's Louisiana. That's where I come from. And you know, the California is just this monster,
This
squeezing.
this is
Yeah,
California.
yeah. But again, the interesting thing is that a person without an exact knowledge of the size of all these states would probably not be that impressed with these differences. So that was a good example of how you can use the map itself as a way of conveying quantitative information. Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
And here you see the map as it would ordinarily look. And here you see that bubbles have been
Here's
used.
the shoe
Yep.
and California.
Still quite a bit bigger, but it isn't quite the monster. And I mean, you can also see a big difference in a state like Florida. That's the one that looks like a kind of a peninsula sticking off of, yeah, that guy.
Oh yeah, that was different.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much calmer image, and the states don't get across anything except their actual boundaries. So, but it's interesting that you see, even just looking at this map, if we're, if you just glance at it, you immediately notice a visual difference on the right side, where you have the older part, where Florida, Louisiana, that kind of place is, that whole right side, you see natural kind of irregular boundaries. You go to the left, to the west, and suddenly they're all straight lines, which tells you that this was probably settled more quickly and more officially and drawn on the map by people, as opposed to following just where they happen to be able to settle and make a border. So there's different ways of finding data in an existing map and using the map. And here you see a typical bubble diagram where bubbles have been used to represent, I forget exactly what, probably some sort of economic activity or population density. Can we go on? Yep.
Yes.
This interesting example was created to show the path and progress of people who had survived the Holocaust in one location. The reason the person created this was that there was an official visualization showing, all the different cities and different locations. But she noticed that in the stories people told, many locations occurred which had not been had no official representation on official maps. So she made this representation showing locations, which you can see in the quotes in the stories, things like, the junior college in the town, or the place, the window of the office, or the railroad station, or the big buggy, just a big, horse-drawn vehicle, which played a role in the stories and which had a definite location on the map. Interestingly here, because it's kind of a human story and these things often don't have exact boundaries, she used the smudges. You see, it looks kind of smudgy and irregular, but the density and the darkness, the shade of the smudges tells you how often that appeared in the stories. So it actually does convey quantitative information. So I thought this was an interesting kind of humanist example. Yeah, go on. And yeah, the links between different bike sharing cities and places. Um, and the size of the circle shows the population. It's a fairly simple but very elegant and playful and attractive visualization. Personally, what I find often very appealing about data visualization is that it combines sobriety and playfulness. On the one hand, it's a very strict kind of notation of something in the world, almost like musical notation. On the other hand, it has elements in it which play, and that combination has always had great charm for me. Yeah, go on.
Yes.
And a very typical flight chart, always fun to look at, telling us, who's flying where, how. Yeah, go on.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what, when you deliver your first version of your spatial graphic, the same thing as always, you add it to the Miro board. And very important, don't forget the next slide.
Reminder.
Yeah, to keep gathering the photographs that we're going to use to combine multiple moments into one image, as we talked about last week. That goes on. And one other thing, don't forget to have fun while you're doing this. And you'll notice the feedback appearing in the Miro board in the form of little notes. And we'll also be talking this week. Yep.
Yes. Have
Okay.
fun. See
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll stop the recording. Check.